horror movie begins is just as crucial as how it ends. Although certain filmmakers like to take a slow approach, setting up stakes and character dynamics, others jump into the deep end straight away, scaring moviegoers before the title card has been revealed. Even though the audience may not fully comprehend what's going on this early in the story, they find themselves instantly hooked, desperate to see how the rest of the film plays out. Now, the problem with making the opening too good is the rest of the picture might pale by comparison. Fortunately, that isn't the case here. Now, we have already done a list covering this very topic, but there's just so many more to talk about. So, with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 more horror movies you knew would be good after the first 10 minutes. Number 10, The Hitcher. Even though the evil drifter trope is nothing new, few stories have utilised the idea more effectively than 1986's The Hitcher. Robert Harmon's thriller introduces deranged hitchhiker John Ryder within the first minute. After being picked up by young driver Jim Halsey, John immediately makes Jim feel uncomfortable with his opaque answers and flippant attitude. When Jim asks what John wants, he laughs manically before saying those chilling words, "That's what the other guy said." With that single sentence, the audience realises John is slaughtering anyone foolish enough to let him in their vehicle, and worse still, Jim is intended to be his latest victim. As uncomfortable as this moment is, it only gets worse, since every word uttered by Ryder makes him sound more unhinged. When he starts talking about popping eyeballs and lopping off limbs, viewers feel just as unsettled as the protagonist. The setup couldn't be simpler, but the charming performance makes the scene riveting from beginning to end. Rather than hamming it up, the Blade Runner actor says every line with casual delight, which is far more unnerving. Number 9, The Invisible Man. The scares come long before anyone turns invisible in this H.G. Wells adaptation. The Invisible Man opens with Cecilia leaving her abusive husband, Adrian, in the middle of the night. After being picked up by her sister, the pair drive off just as Adrian is about to catch them. Thanks to Elizabeth Moss's body language and superb acting, it's clear her character is scared out of her mind. Although jump scares get a bad rap, they're utilised well here. Every time there's a loud noise, viewers know Cecilia's life could be in serious danger. The scene is marvellous at visual storytelling since it's easy to understand what's happening despite the minimal dialogue. When Cecilia shakes Adrian's glass of water, it fizzes up, indicating she's drugged it. A shot of a passport and map can be observed in Cecilia's bag, verifying she's leaving for good. The way she swiftly preps her belongings and alters Adrian's security cameras proves that she's been planning her escape for a long time. A dialogue-free sequence can drag, especially when it's 7 minutes long, but this intro never loses its momentum for a second. Number 8, Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise was the first in the series to have no input from its creator Sam Raimi. As a result, loyalists were understandably skeptical. Fortunately, the zombie reboot put those concerns to bed immediately. Our story begins in the woods, with the camera violently winding around the trees as an obvious throwback to the original film's nifty camera work. Although this was a cool technique at the time, it isn't very impressive in this day and age since it can be easily achieved with a drone. However, the movie is in on the joke, as it's soon revealed that this shot is from one of the characters' drones. With that bit of levity out of the way, Rise moves on to the scares. Literally 2 minutes after Jessica, Caleb and Teresa are introduced, things take a nasty turn. After Jess becomes possessed, she rips Teresa's scalp off and decapitates Caleb. As Teresa looks on in terror, Jess hovers above the lake, smiling in triumph. Suddenly, the title appears from behind Jessica in big, bold letters, fittingly rising into the sky. Even though these characters don't reappear, the scene is ingrained in viewers' memories due to the incredible title reveal. Number 7, Zombieland. Zombieland could have easily come across as a rip-off of Shaun of the Dead, which released 5 years prior, but the feature successfully carved its own identity, putting a distinctive spin on the genre. The movie starts with Columbus narrating how most of humanity has been turned into brain-munching zombies. He explains how he survived the apocalypse by sticking with a set of strict rules, while showing what happens to the poor souls who don't abide by them. The scene doles out exposition in a hysterically entertaining way, while still emphasizing how threatening the zombies are. Even though Zombieland is a comedy, it's obvious from the beginning that these mindless revenants will rip your face off. Once Columbus finishes his spiel, the opening credits roll alongside a delightful montage of people being hunted and eaten by the undead. Not only is this sequence hilarious, the clips are shown in slow-mo, giving viewers ample time to admire each frame. It may be a zom-com, but this intro proved the filmmaker took the tale very seriously, and viewers were in for a good time. Number 6. Don't Look Now. Based on the way Don't Look Now is presented, it doesn't seem like a horror movie. As such, viewers are sure to be blindsided by the first scene. Married couple John and Laura Baxter are keeping busy at home as their daughter Christine plays outside in her red raincoat. While John studies his photographs, the camera makes sudden cuts to Christine, who's hunched dangerously close to a lake. After Laura's wine spills over a picture of a red-coated figure, John notices it looks like the person is bleeding. Believing the image is a sign Christine is in danger, John runs outside and jumps into the water to rescue her. Although John's intuition is spot on, he's too late since Christine has already drowned. In shock, John lets out a defeated wail while clutching his child's body. Even though it's a powerful scene in its own right, this is magnified exponentially through simple film techniques. Rather than relying on creepy music, jump scares, or exposition, the scene uses visual storytelling to convey what's happening, and more importantly, where it's leading. On a rewatch, the scene is more profound, since John's line how not everything is what it seems perfectly foreshadows the gut-wrenching ending of Don't Look Now. Number 5. Jurassic Park. Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park is full of iconic scenes that every 90s kid knows off by heart. Due to the abundance of memorable moments, however, it's easy to forget how sublime Jurassic Park's prelude is. The sci-fi horror classic begins with a group of armed guards cautiously staring at a group of rustling trees in front of them. When an animalistic sound is heard, the audience expects to see a man-eating lizard any second. That's when the movie pulls a fast one. Although a velociraptor does appear, it's being transported in a sealed box. At first, this sequence feels like a double letdown since the raptor isn't seen, nor is anyone mauled by the creature. Or so it seems. While the audience lets their guard down, the rabid reptile bursts from its container, grabbing one of the guards as he's violently swung around. The others do all they can to help while their employer cries out, "Shoot her!" As the victim's hand grows limp, it's clear the guards' efforts were for naught. Like Jaws, this scene perfectly demonstrates Spielberg's talent at instilling fear in the audience without having to show the monster. As petrifying as this moment was, it's only a taste of what was to come. Number 4. Dawn of the Dead, 2004. Zack Snyder must have had balls of steel when he decided his directorial debut would be a Dawn of the Dead remake. Considering George A. Romero's classic is hailed as one of the best and most influential zombie films ever, it seemed to be an impossible act to follow. To the surprise of everyone, Snyder's version was a blast. In fact, the most cynical viewers were sold before the first scene even ended. Less than 5 minutes in, child zombies are chomping on neighbours, helicopters are crashing, and buildings are going kaboom. Even though Snyder's later work tends to be overly stylized, this opening feels gritty and visceral. Rather than relying on excess CGI, the Man of Steel director uses complex dolly shots to emulate our heroine being chased, especially while she's driving. The scene is also memorable because most viewers weren't expecting the undead to run. Save for 28 Days Later, zombies have been commonly depicted as shuffling corpses, especially in Romero's work. Now that the reanimated flesh-eaters could keep up with their lunch, they posed a far greater threat. Even though Dawn of the Dead has many awesome scenes, nothing grabs you the same way as this ferocious sequence. Number 3. It Follows. In the beginning of It Follows, a half-dressed woman bursts out of her house, constantly looking back as if someone is chasing her. Her shoes don't match her clothes, suggesting she shoved them on in a panic the instant she realized something was following her. She then circles back to her house, grabs her purse, and zooms off in her car. The scene cuts to nighttime, with Annie huddled on the beach in palpable terror. When her dad rings her phone, she answers it, telling him she loves him in a way that suggests that she has accepted her fate. During this conversation, a repetitive thud can be heard in the distance, which sounds eerily like footsteps. The scene suddenly cuts to the next morning, revealing a close-up of Annie's corpse. The camera pulls back, showing her body has been viciously mutilated. With that 3-minute sequence, the audience is instantly invested and petrified beyond measure. Even though the pursuer and the murder itself is never witnessed, viewers immediately understand Annie's concerns were 100% warranted. It's also a great scene since it proves a movie doesn't need to start with a mask-wearing psychopath or a hulking monster to leave a haunting impression. Number 2. Halloween. Not only did Halloween popularise the slasher genre, it still remains one of the most spine-tingling horror movies of all time. After nearly half a century, the soundtrack, the POV shots, and Michael Myers' featureless mask still remain iconic. And of course, fans aren't going to forget those ruthless kills anytime soon. But in many ways, the most impactful moment in the saga is how it all started. The original Halloween kicks off with an unseen figure stalking a house. Through an unbroken 4-minute shot, we see the assailant break in, grab a kitchen knife, and put on a mask before hacking a teenage girl to death. As the murderer marches outside, their mask is pulled off, revealing the figure to be a 6-year-old boy. And that's how audiences in 1978 were introduced to the legendary Michael Myers. Even though the franchise has had many brutal deaths and shocking twists, nothing had quite the same oomph as this defining moment. But it's not just the reveal that's powerful. Based on Michael's vacant expression, it looks like he doesn't even understand why he committed an act of unspeakable evil. Number 1. Bram Stoker's Dracula. Although Dracula's origins are etched in mystery in the source material, Francis Ford Coppola gave the blood-sucking Nosferatu a detailed backstory for his film adaptation. Bram Stoker's Dracula opens with our titular character as a mortal man readying for war. When his wife falsely believes her beloved fell in battle, she takes her own life, condemning her soul to hell. Feeling betrayed by the very church he vowed to defend, Dracula renounces God, transforming into a vampire. This prologue is a wonder to behold for 2 main reasons. Rather than concocting some long-winded backstory, Dracula's origins and motivation are concisely summarized in a couple of minutes. Secondly, every visual is a feast for the eyes. The sword being driven into the cross, the statues and candles weeping blood, the silhouette of Dracula hoisting an enemy in the air with his spear. Also, all these glorious images were achieved with 0 special effects. In fact, they were devised by Coppola's son. As the final cherry on top, the whole scene is accompanied by Anthony Hopkins' enthralling narration and a magnificent score. After witnessing an opening this visually stunning, horror purists knew they were about to watch something very special. And that concludes our list. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.